Searching for sanity in an insane world. That's the topic of today's Bold and Blunt. And I'm your host, Cheryl Chumley, giving you a Christian conservative look at today's news, politics, culture, and events. Are you confused about how crazy this world seems to have gotten in recent times? Just look at America. Look at America, where it's now... It's considered intolerant if you tell a boy who dresses as a little girl and wants to go into girls' dressing rooms and changing rooms and bathrooms that he can't because he's a boy. When that's called intolerance, we're just at the point, biblically speaking, where good has been flipped for evil and evil has been flipped for good. And before I get into all that, I want to mention, if you are a conservative and you are retired, Republican Metals believes you need to protect that savings now. Currency change is coming now. Call Republican Metals at 800-783-3118. That's 800-783-3118. And one other quick housekeeping. If you like Bold and Blunt, why not subscribe to Bold and Blunt? You can do so easily enough. You can go to WashingtonTimes.com, scroll to the bottom of the page, find the newsletter section, click on it, find Bold and Blunt with Cheryl Chumley. Click on that and sign up for my 3 times a week newsletter. It comes out Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays right to your email box, and it contains all my daily commentaries and opinion pieces that I write at the Washington Times, as well as my twice weekly Tuesday and Thursday Bold and Blunt podcasts. You can also get Bold and Blunt at edify.app, the online platform for your faith-based podcasts, at Real Life Network. That is the faith-based news platform of Pastor Jack Hibbs out in California. And guess what? You may also get Bold and Blunt wherever podcasts are offered. That's right, Apple, Spotify. And if you go to Apple, you can see all the nice things that people, listeners, regular listeners, subscribers say about my podcast. It's got 4.5 stars out of 5, and that's not bad given all the trolls I have, right? So check it out. Have you heard that song, Men North of Richmond? You must have, because there's millions and millions and millions of downloads of this guy's song from not just in America, but around the world. And the reason why, he's not a record label star or anything. It's not like he had mass marketing behind him or a big PR company pushing this song out. The reason behind his success with his song is that it touches just directly at what average Americans, average freedom-loving people in America and around the world have been feeling for so long, right? Not just betrayed by their politicians, but betrayed by the entire system, betrayed by those who live off the tax dime, right? The tax dollar. Under Joe Biden, those dollars mean nothing, which is one of the issues in this song, right? But it's also a plea for a return to sanity. Why should we have so many people suffering in the world? Why should we have so many people suffering in America, a free market system like America, except for the interventions of government? There is enough out there. Let's just speak of America alone. There are enough resources in America for every man and woman who wants a job to have a job, a decent paying job. There are resources in America for everybody who wants an education to go ahead and get an education and to better him or herself and pull him or herself up by your own bootstraps, right? Take care of self and family. That used to be a core American principle, but what happened is through the years, government meddled into that system. Government took that model and skewed it and twisted it and turned it for government's own greedy ends. And we are seeing now under Joe Biden, but guess what? Under even Republican administrations, there are too many Americans who are left behind, right, by the system because of a culture that allows for sin to dominate, allows for greed and the lusts of hearts and the designs of selfish self-ambitious politicians to grow and spread, and puts the little man, the little woman, the little person who simply wants to raise his or her own family as he or she chooses and to be left alone by government, puts them as the enemy of society. Listen to some of his words.
Out here and waste my life away, drag back home and drown my troubles away. It's a damn shame what the world's gotten to for people like me, people like you.
Look, it is a damn shame, right? Excuse the language, but it is a dang shame that here we have this wonderful country called America, which allows for individualism, allows for individuals to take their talents and grow them and exploit them and profit off of them. And then you have government coming in and taking, so as to drive out the seeds of greatness from each and every individual. That's their ultimate end game, right? Because if God plants you with a seed, a talent, a mission in life, and you grow up in a nation that's free, you are allowed to exploit that seed, that mission, that talent, not only to better your own life and that of your families, but in the end to glorify God. Government gets into the picture and meddles with that, and taxes and overtaxes and fees and overfees, and then starts meddling in the culture and telling people who are sane that no, you are insane. You are actually the ones who are insane and intolerant and divisive and racist and intolerant, and you must stifle your opinions because we think people who years ago who would have been considered insane, we actually have deemed those people the sane ones now. And I speak specifically to the LGBTQ community here in America that has been allowed to just openly get away with evil acts, okay? Evil acts under the watchful eyes and the applauding cheers, the praise and the go get 'em narratives of the left, of Democrats. And the media has been one of the worst players, right? The media cannot stand the idea of individuals succeeding without government's help because that counters the media's long-running narrative, the media that has been infiltrated by Marxists and socialists and communists. It counters the narrative that government is there to provide from cradle to grave, and individuals who question that concept of government, that vision of government, are the dangers to society. Let me read this from one of these mainstream media organizations that loves to pretend that it's above the fray of politics and unbiased, but really in oh so clever and not so clever ways manages to insert bias, leftist leaning bias, into what should be just a basic story. Oliver Anthony's Men North of Richmond. This is The Guardian that wrote this piece. Oliver Anthony's Men North of Richmond, we just heard a clip of that. The Out of Nowhere country song that went viral earlier this month has debuted at #1 on the Billboard Hot 100 chart, making him the first artist to do this with no prior chart history in any form. And then this piece goes on to give the stats of this song: streamed 17.5 million times during the week ending August 17th. A video of his song posted by the channel Radio WV, which is where I played the clip from, racking up 30 million views in 12 days. Now here comes the insertion of left-leaning bias, okay? The conservative-leaning hit has drawn backlash for its anti-taxes sentiment and for invoking the stereotype of the, quote, welfare queen, end quote. And then it quotes the song, Lord, we got folks in the street, ain't got nothing to eat, and the obese milking welfare. And that's just one line that they quote. And then they go on to quote his song, well, God, if you're 5'3" and you're 300 pounds, taxes ought not to pay for your bags of fudge rounds. That's brilliant, right? Because who among us in America has not stood behind somebody at the checkout line in a grocery store radically overweight, right? Obviously obese, and buying more junk food, which is your right to do so, right? If you want to do that, hey, free America, free society, go at it. Aside from a very Christian outlook that feels sorry for these people and wishes that they could eat healthier for their own sake and the sake of their loved ones, I just say have at it. Do what you want. But the difference comes in when it's tax dollars paying for that food. So that's when you open the doors. When you take tax dollars to pay for food, which is a basic human necessity that you as an individual should be providing for yourself and your family. When you take tax dollars for that, you open the doors for Americans in general to critique what you're spending that money on. Okay? That's the trade-off. You take tax dollars, then you get lots of feedback for what you spend those tax dollars on. It's called accountability. Let me read more from this. 'Cause your dollar ain't shit. Okay, I said it. Yes, I said it. But I'm quoting. I'm quoting from this singer's song, okay? Which The Guardian has quoted itself. 'Cause your dollar ain't bleep and it's taxed to no end. And young men are putting themselves 6 feet in the ground because all this damn country does is keep on kicking them down. And then listen to this. This is the Guardian's words, okay? It, meaning this song, also dabbles in conspiracy. Keep that in mind. The line that he sang is, I wish politicians would look out for minors and not just minors on an island somewhere. So his first reference to minors is spelled M-I-N-E-R-S, right? His second reference to minors is spelled M-I-N-O-R-S. A reference to Jeffrey Epstein's Paradise Island, right? This is how Guardian puts it, a reference to many conspiracy theories surrounding the crimes and death of Jeffrey Epstein. Look, it's not conspiracy, okay? And Americans are sick and tired of being told that the sexual trafficking of children, as went forth under Jeffrey Epstein, as went forth on his very secret, not so secret island, Americans are being sick and tired of being told that's conspiracy. It's not. And guess what? His death, not conspiracy to question the official narrative of suicide. It just seems oh so mightily convenient that Jeffrey Epstein, who schmoozed with some of the top elites of the world, who traveled with him to and fro, his sex trafficking of Miners Island, right? Aboard an airplane that was known to carry sex trafficking minors with it, that it's conspiracy theory to suggest that the government would like to cover that up, right? It's ridiculous. And the fact that the mainstream media constantly injects its left-leaning, leftist-loving narratives into stories that should just be cut and dry reporting, right? Without the commentary, without the running snark. It just speaks to the fact how far this nation has turned down the corner of accepting leftism in all facets of life. And this is why we're at where we are in America. In my view, and you know this if you're a regular listener, all roads lead back to God. If we turn as a society from God, then God will say, here you go, have at it, have a society without me, and then watch the evil flow. This is where we're at, right? And this song speaks to this because if you listen to him sing, which I hope you do, I don't want to play, I want you to go to YouTube yourself and download it and listen to it. I want him to get billions of listening, not just listening to it on Bold and Blunt, but go there, listen to the song, listen to the words, read the words, and tell me if that song isn't striking exactly at the heart of what is bothering all patriotic citizens in this country and freedom-loving citizens of the world. It's brilliant, it's so simple, and it actually is very emotional. It pulls on the heartstrings. So my guest today, he has his own viewpoints on what is going wrong in America. Specifically, the moral compass of America is a little bit skewed. Well, make that a lot bit skewed, okay? And it's not just under Joe Biden, but certainly it is ratcheting up under Joe Biden. Joe Biden and Democrats really just enable the evil, right? They are enablers of Satan, okay? That's my viewpoint. There, I said it. I don't know if Todd Starnes, who is my guest today, thinks that radically about it, but I do know that he has a lot of insightful analysis into all things that are going wrong in America, but more importantly, how to fix them. Todd, thank you so much for being on Bold and Blunt. It is great to have you here.
Cheryl, thanks so much. Love your column, a huge fan.
Oh, thank you so much. And the admiration flows both ways. I've been a big fan of yours as well for a very long time. And there's so much I wanted to talk about with you, but I was scrolling through your Twitter feed, and I have to start with this. August 11th, you posted this piece, DeSantis shouted down by large woman with magenta hair screaming, pudding fingers. What is that? What was taking place there?
No, Cheryl, you've got to say it right. It's pudding. You got to drop that G like we say in the South, like banana pudding.
Got it. Okay.
Pudding fingers. So this goes back to an incident that was well documented. I guess DeSantis was famished. He was on a plane, and they had those delicious little pudding snacks, and he didn't have any utensils. So the story goes that he actually used his fingers as a spoon to eat the chocolate pudding, and it has kind of become its own lore on the campaign trail. But I mean, look, we're in such a weird time right now in politics, especially within the Republican Party. Something I think is sort of funny has now sort of taken on a life of its own as people try to figure out, okay, what's the deal with DeSantis? Does he actually connect with people? And it's become a thing.
Yeah, it certainly has. And honestly, what you described right there with the pudding cup kind of reminds me of Marco Rubio with the water bottle. Remember that?
That's right, yes. I mean, it's those little things that sort of define you. And, of course, Donald Trump has a way of finding these nicknames. And, honestly, I'm surprised he didn't go with pudding fingers as the nickname for DeSantis. But what's so brutal is they actually stick because, there's some, nugget of truth or sliver of truth in it.
Yeah, it's like that old middle school name calling that you can't quite shake as the high school years roll around. It's really stubborn. But speaking of the political landscape, I wanted to talk with you mostly about the culture versus politics, the moral compass of our nation, and how that is feeding into the politics, the real divisiveness we see in this nation right now. Talk about what you see in terms of the morality of America and where that's going to lead.
It's really all over the place. And I go back to a quote from President Adams back many, many years ago, who said that our Constitution is wholly inadequate for anyone other than a moral and religious people. And I think we now live in a time and in a decade especially where the nation has become irreligious. So when you look at the polling surveys, fewer Americans are going to church. Fewer Americans believe in the tenets of the Holy Bible. And John Adams and our founding fathers seem to believe that this was the sort of the threads that held us all together. So when you take that out of the equation, I think you get what we have, which is chaos in the culture. And a lot of this is being directed at President Trump. But let me say, Cheryl, that I think the issue with Donald Trump and the reason why I think so many people are angered by his campaign and his success is because he really is the epitome of the American dream. When you step back and when you look at his life and what he has done, who among us does not aspire to be that, multimillionaire with buildings with his name emblazoned on it? Who doesn't aspire to be able to marry the fashion model and live, on a seaside resort? That is, in essence, the American dream to many people.
So this hatred of Donald Trump is being driven, don't you think, by globalists then?
I think think so, and unless unless Donald Trump is playing all of us, I really do believe that he loves America. He loves what this country is about and what this country has done for his family, and I think he sees from a globalist perspective, what those, what the dangers that are out there that might be lurking when it comes to being a part of this global community. He takes great credit in saying that he was the only president in modern American history who did not get us into an armed conflict. And I think the American people appreciate that. I know I do. I was one of the few conservatives at the time that really questioned and pushed back on the Bush administration's decision to go into war with Iraq. I thought that was a big mistake at the time, and I think to this day, so do a lot of other Americans.
So where do you see these indictments with Trump headed? Because I see a backlash brewing. The media won't admit it, but I think it's there.
I think the backlash is already here, Cheryl, and I think it's only going to get worse. And Georgia could just push people over the edge. And I say that because the situation in Georgia is very different than what happened in New York and in D.C. And I will say this, it's maybe similar to what they were trying to do in New York City, but this is going to put them over the edge. You've got a radicalized district attorney, hates Donald Trump, and she sees this as an opportunity for her to be on the national platform. We know the sheriff down there in Fulton County has already said, we're going to treat Trump like any other criminal. We're going to fingerprint him. We're going to mugshot him, and we will release that to the public. And just a little while ago, we got word that the judge is going to allow cameras in the courtroom, which had not been the case in the last indictment. So I think we're going to see a lot of people very angry at how Donald Trump is being treated. And by the way, just to give you another taste of it, they leaked the indictment, posted it on the county website, and then immediately took it down. Come on.
Yeah, just long enough so we can all take shots of it, right? Pictures of it and spread it around. Look, maybe 20 years ago, I remember watching news and seeing fires in the streets of other countries and thugs out throwing bottles and Molotov cocktails and thinking, wow, it's a good thing that doesn't happen in America. And now here we are. Do you think we could see a sort of violence like only seen in other third world countries and corrupt governments in America if Trump is not only indicted but found guilty and treated like a common criminal?
It's a great question, and I'm not sure I know the answer to that. When you see because people are thinking that's exactly what's going to happen. They're saying, oh, this is going to be worse than J6. Well, we really still don't know what happened on J6. You now have the former police chief of the Capitol Police saying that he believes this was all a big setup and that there was more to the story. And of course, I've actually believed that all along. And of course, that actually happened live during my national radio show, and I was pretty direct in my condemnation for the people that were storming the Capitol. I mean, this is America. We don't do that. And so I think whenever conservatives try to behave like Democrats, it always turns out badly. And so I don't think that we're going to have violence, but I'm not sure. People are very angry about this, and we'll have to see if cooler heads will prevail.
When you look out at America, are you mostly optimistic or are you pessimistic?
No, I'm always optimistic. I'm frustrated and angry at times, but I'm always optimistic because there's really no other place. This is it. This is freedom's last stand is America. I mean, where are we going to go? Tijuana? So I think we have to stand and we have to fight. The challenge is understanding where the fight is. And, I've written a lot of books about this, and I've suggested that the fight really isn't in Washington, D.C. It's in our homes and it's in our neighborhoods and our communities. And by that, I mean, when you look at our public education system, this really has become radicalized over, I think, since the 1960s. It hasn't happened overnight. And as a result of a radicalized public education system, I think that's why we have seen this cultural and this moral change in our country. It has not been natural. It has been aggressive, and it has been forced. And I think ultimately we have to reclaim control of our public school system on the local level we're going to have hope of, fixing what is broken with America right now.
I think there are still too many Republicans out there and conservatives in general who look at the Democrats and say, or truly believe that they can have a rational discussion and persuade the politics to change. When I look at the Democrat Party, and I just see it infiltrated with evil, and you can't have a conversation with that. How do you see change being done for the better in this country when you have a political party in half of America that are almost demonic in nature and certainly anti-American?
That is a great question. And when you look at the polling data, and there are so many polls out there, so many Americans, especially millennials and Generation Z, believe there should be limitations on free speech. So again, where are they learning this? This is coming from our public school system. And the concern is that these people are now in their, at least, the millennials, they're in their 30s now. These people are moving into management positions. And so that sort of mindset has now infected a lot of companies and corporations. And we're starting to see that being manifested with, for example, the marketing director for Bud Light. And a lot of people are very surprised that these companies, when they come under attack, like in Anheuser-Busch or Target, Disney is a great example, also most recently Skittles. People are shocked when they don't back away from these woke policies and positions. And the reason why they don't is because they believe they have the moral high ground. And I think in their mindset, they would rather bankrupt the company than back away from the defense of these radical woke agendas out there.
And let's talk about for a second the LGBTQ community and agenda, because I think a lot of people in America thought that this was just a trend, that just let it play out, don't be too offensive, live and let live, and the lunacy will go away. Well, it's just getting stronger. So have we surpassed the point where we can put a stop to this, do you think?
I think so. I think that people are pushing back, and a lot of that has to do with COVID. And so moms and dads were sort of forced to realize, oh, wait a second, this is what my kid is learning in school. What the heck? And of course, that led to the Moms for Liberty movement, which led to a lot of these school board fights, which is a great thing for the country. So the question is, can we reverse all of this? Sort of reverse engineer what's happening in our public schools. That's going to be the question. There's going to be a lot of fight, and pushback on that. But we have to, and if we don't, then we could lose the country. I don't think we're going to. I think there are a lot of good-hearted moms and dads. The Jason Aldean song. Try that in a small town.
Yes.
I think that is really indicative, and the reason why that song has really been endearing to a lot of people is because they get it. They're like, yeah, we're not doing this in our community anymore. We're laying down the law here. We're drawing a line in the sand.
Yeah, and I agree, and that song certainly is a note of optimism, because you and I follow what takes place in America on a daily basis, and it looks very dark, especially when you rightly point out the battle is in the homes, in the individual homes. And when you see such lunatic fringe coming out of the homes that boys can go in girls' dressing rooms just because they say they're girls, it makes you wonder, Rome collapsed because of moral depravity. Is America there now?
It is getting close. If any student of history knows what happened with the fall of Rome, and I think really when you look at what's happening across Europe right now, and how so many churches and beautiful cathedrals are now being turned into mosques, or quite frankly just torn down altogether.
Yes.
I think this really is a spiritual battle we are facing, and when you look at what's happening in America, one of my greatest concerns, and I have a book coming out next year, and I write about the way churches were so willing to shut down during the pandemic and stay closed. And and the pastors who actually got up in their pulpit, some of these megachurch pastors, and they were sounding the government charge of we're doing this for your safety, we're taking away your civil liberties for your safety. And I thought to myself, oh my goodness, what a dangerous place we are in a country right now.
Okay, so now you are hitting what to me was the biggest problem with the entire coronavirus fiasco, the idea that churches caved to government orders. And they did it, like you pointed out, oh, we have to save our congregations when, what's their job as a pastor? Is it to save people, or is it, save them medically, or is it to preach to them? And I'm so glad you're writing this book, because that's the key to American exceptionalism right there.
It's, looking at what happened in Venezuela years ago. I interviewed a young man who had come here to America to study. His family had been very well off in Venezuela. They lost everything. And, he told me, he says, he realized it really started when they went after the churches and they started shutting down the churches. And that conversation really struck a chord in me. And so when that started happening here in America, I thought to myself, wow, so one of two things is happening. They're going to shut down the churches, and they're not going to open them back up, or they're using this as some sort of a test. Let's see how far we can push the American people. Let's see what we can do here. And I think, unfortunately, the American people failed that test.
Big time failure. And look, here's what keeps me going is I think of the story of Gideon, right? Where God just kept whittling down people until it just was a handful of people that he used. God doesn't need a majority in order to save a nation. What keeps you going when you think about the perils facing America?
Well, I grew up in the Baptist faith tradition, Southern Baptist faith tradition, and we used to sing a little song in Sunday school, and it wasn't something, I will not sing it for you.
Come on.
We want to grow the podcast, Cheryl. My hope is built on nothing less than Jesus' blood and righteousness. And as a Christian, and again, our nation being founded on Judeo-Christian teachings and values, I truly believe that, if we place our faith and trust in God, then we're going to be going to a good place. And if we don't, well, we've got chaos in the culture.
That's exactly what it is. That you can't state anything better than that. That's what it comes down to. Todd Starnes, I want to thank you so much for taking the time to be on Bold and Blunt. And can you give the name of your upcoming book, or is that being held?
Sure, yeah. It should be available for pre-orders very soon. It's coming out in March 19th. It's called Twilight's Last Gleaming.
Excellent.
Can America Be Saved?
That's a great title. I will pick up my own copy, and I know it's going to do well because it's the message America needs to hear right now. Thank you so much, Todd, for being on Bold and Blunt.
Thanks a lot, Cheryl.
Todd Starnes, what a great guest. What a great host. He has his own radio show, his own podcast. He puts out a newsletter, which if you haven't subscribed to, you need to, because he puts it out several times a day, and it contains all the breaking news that Christians, conservatives, patriotic Americans really need to stay on top of. His website is toddstarnes.com, and of course, as if you don't already know, but that is spelled S-T-A-R-N-E-S, toddstarnes.com. I want to thank you for listening and let you know that you need to protect your IRA and your 401k with gold now. Call Republican Metals at 800-783-3118 to get your free gold guide. Check it out. That's 800-783-3118. And if you like listening to Bold and Blunt, why not subscribe to Bold and Blunt? You may do so at WashingtonTimes.com, at Edify.app, at Real Life Network, at Apple, Spotify, wherever podcasts are offered. If you are already a subscriber, can't thank you enough. Really appreciate it. And I want to thank you for listening to this episode. Tune in next time. And in the meanwhile, stay blunt, stay bold.